Good morning. My name is Wendy Howard, and I'm reading a poem this morning for our opening words, The Sunflowers by Mary Oliver. Come with me into the field of sunflowers. Their faces are burnished discs. Their dry spines creak like ship masts. Their green leaves, so heavy and many, fill all day with the sticky sugars of the sun. Come with me to visit the sunflowers. They are shy, but want to be friends. They have wonderful stories of when they were young, the important weather, the wandering crows. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Their bright faces, which follow the sun, will listen, and all those rows of seeds, each one a new life. Hope for a deeper acquaintance. Each of them, though it stands in a crowd of many, like a separate universe, is lonely. The long work of turning their lives into a celebration is not easy. Come, let us talk with those modest faces, the simple garments of leaves, the coarse roots of the earth, so uprightly burning.
Will you please rise in body and or spirit? I like it when we do both. For our opening song, our opening hymn is For the Earth Forever Turning. I tend to do it a little faster, so that after the second line, you want to take a deep breath because there's no place to breathe in the second line. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. For the earth forever turning, for the skies forever. Breathe here. For our lives, for all we cherish, sing we all joyful song of peace. For the mountains, hills, and pastures in their silent majesty. For our stars, let all the heavens sing we all joyful song of peace. For the sun, the rain, and thunder in the seasons' harmony. For our lives, for all creation, sing we all joyful praise of thee. For the world we raise our voices, for the home that gives us birth. For the joy we sing, returning to our blue-green hills of earth.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Central Oregon. My name is Marian Jordan, and I'll be your worship celebrant this morning. We are an inclusive community that affirms the mind and heart in our search for truth and meaning. However you came here today, whatever your path, your identity, or your life story, you are welcome. You may have come with anticipation or curiosity, with yearning, or perhaps with sadness. You may have rushed. You may not have had time to eat breakfast. You may have had trouble finding a parking space, but you made it. And we're glad you're here. This is a community with love at its center, where we are growing, changing, and discovering together. Welcome. And we're especially fortunate to welcome Ellen Waterston, Oregon's 11th Poet Laureate, as our speaker this morning. As a gifted and celebrated writer, teacher, speaker, rancher, and keen observer, Ellen is an advocate for the literary arts, especially in the high desert region of Oregon. author of 4 books of poetry with another on the way, and 5 literary nonfiction titles, and a few books will be available after the service if you're interested, and recognized with many awards. She is the founder of the Writing Ranch and the annual Waterston Desert Writing Prize. In 2006, soon after I arrived in Central Oregon, I had the good fortune of participating in one of Ellen's Writing Ranch retreats in the Oregon Outback. It was an amazing, inspiring, and immersive introduction to the landscape and the spirit of the high desert. So, Ellen, thank you for being here today. Now, Nancy Hodge will offer our chalice lighting words as Dale Clark lights our chalice.
I Breathe by Craig Rowland. I breathe in the warmth of this light, its glow filling the spaces where fear and doubt reside. I breathe out the tension I carry. I release what no longer serves me. I breathe in the strength of our community, a sanctuary of diverse voices and shared purpose. I breathe out the urge to go it alone. I embrace the power of togetherness. I breathe in the courage to speak truth, even when it trembles on my lips. I breathe out the silence that holds me back. I make space for honesty and justice. I breathe in the hope of transformation, knowing we are here to build and to heal. I breathe out despair, trusting that change is born in small acts of love. As we light this chalice, may each breath remind us of the sacred rhythm of life, the pulse of creation, and the power we hold to shape the world around us.
Will you please join us in body, rise in body or spirit to join us in singing the Spirit of Life. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, springs set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Good morning. My name is Amy Brock, and I'm the Director of Religious Exploration for Children and Youth, and it is time for our Time for All Ages. So if you are young or young at heart, I invite you to make your way to the rug. We have a really fun story to share with you today. Alice is going to share it with us, and I think she's going to tell us a little bit about why she chose this story to share with us today.
So these summer days are good times to go outside and look around, maybe look at the sunflowers we were just thinking about, and imagine what they're thinking. Do they like the bees? Or are they afraid of the bees? Do the bees tickle? We could imagine all sorts of things. I think they do too, yeah. Mm-hmm. So what is it? It's about imagination today, and What does it mean to imagine things? To tell about something that's in your mind in a special way. When you imagine things, do they have to be true? No, no, no. Sometimes they're better when they're not true. Okay. Well, our book today, we have to use our imagination because the person who did this book didn't put any words in it. So I'm going to imagine the story the way I think it is, and I may need some help along the way, okay? Can we have the slide? The book is called Tuesday, and all we know is that apparently Tuesday is a really good day to imagine things. You had this book before? Oh, good, then you know. All right. Slide. It was a Tuesday evening, and everything was quite the way it's supposed to be. The frogs were at the pond. The sun was going down and leaving a nice sunset. The moon was just coming up. The frogs were doing what frogs do, but all of a sudden, the turtle looks up at the sky, and he looks very surprised. Slide. It seems that on a Tuesday evening, right, it seems that, yep, the lily pads apparently can be quite magic on a Tuesday evening. Yep. Slide. Well, they decided that flying was really, really fun. They could fly upside down. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. They found out that they could fly right over the power poles, and they could scare the birds off the poles. That never had happened to birds before.
And there's a giant crowd of frogs, and the birds are like, what is happening today? Is this some kind of...
Slide. So they thought, well, this is so much fun, why don't we just fly into town and see what's going on in the town? They're going to go get a drink. Could be. So they noticed that the town was very quiet. Everybody was sound asleep, except, slide. There's one man who couldn't sleep, and so he did what we all do when we can't sleep. He went downstairs, made a sandwich, and got a glass of milk.
And he sees this flying frog and thinks he must be dreaming. And he's like, am I dreaming? Because I never remember falling asleep.
I think that's exactly what he's thinking. Slide. They discovered that there were some problems when you flew through town because some people had left their sheets out on the clothesline.
And one of the frogs fell off his lily pad.
Yep. Yeah, one of them got clear off his lily pad, and next slide.
Is having a very nice time. Super frog.
One of them decided to use his sheet for a cape, and he was Super Frog. Yeah, okay.
And they flew in through
Yeah.
the house. And then this kid was like, why are there so many green Santa Clauses flying in through the house that are riding on lily pads?
Okay, because it was a warm summer evening, a lot of people had left their windows open, and they flew right in. And a few really, really curious ones flew down the chimney.
Yeah, and the grandma was sleeping, and she saw them and sleeping. She's like,
Yep, Grandma had gone sound asleep.
How
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yep. Okay. Slide.
She forgot what day it was, and she was like, "This is not Tuesday. Tuesday is magical."
Yeah. Well, there were some other problems, though, about flying into town. Yeah, yeah. Yep. Not so good. Slide. Fortune.
Like unidentified army of flying frogs.
There were more frogs. There were more frogs than there were dogs, and that was good.
Frogs and dogs.
Slide. But eventually, the sun started to come up.
Daytime was breaking.
And you,
Frogs were like,
yeah.
"Day is over."
Apparently, when the sun comes up, the magic goes out of the lily pads, and it left the frogs all alone up in the sky.
And the frogs were falling, and they were like, "What is happening? I think it's still Tuesday."
Slide. So the frogs all decided it's time we got back to the lily pads and started doing what frogs do.
Yeah, one of the
Slide.
frogs was like,
Well, the next morning,
the next morning, the police were like, "Unidentified lily pads."
every
Unidentified lily pads on the ground.
I think they're asking people what happened, because look in the background there. There's that guy. There's the guy.
well, yeah, they
There's the dog. There's the dog, and the dog's like, "I remember that smell. Those are the flying frogs on Tuesday night."
well, they called a detective to try and find out what had happened. The detective didn't know what was going on. The television people came to interview the guy, and he tried to tell them that he had seen flying frogs. Do you think they believed him? Yeah. And there were so many people coming that the police came to make sure everybody was nice and safe. But only the dog knows what really happened.
The man also knows.
And he couldn't tell them because they didn't speak dog.
Yeah, only the dog knows.
Yep, slide. Now you might think that's the end of the story. But on the next Tuesday, there were shadows on the barn. Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, 7:58.
Yeah.
Next Tuesday,
Yep.
7:58 p.m. Pigs are flying.
The pigs decided if the frogs can do it,
Next Tuesday,
if the
Next Tuesday, 7:58. Next Tuesday, 7:58 p.m. The pigs are like, if the frogs can do it, so can we. They just jump on the end. They're like,
No, I don't think
They look like they're having fun.
They do look like they're having fun. Thank you for using your imagination with us today. I think we're going to explore more as we go to RE today and in here. But before we go, we need to say the Children's Covenant. Let's say it together. In this place, I am kind. In this place, I am loving. In this place, I am a friend to the earth and all animals and people. In this place, I am loved. All right, let us go.
I don't even have to give you instructions to make an arch. As you go, may joy surround you. As you go in peace. Oh, our love is with you always. As you go, may joy surround you. As you go in
everyone. I'm Leora Mock, and I'm your operations director. And I've been noticing over the past couple of weeks that sometimes, and it seems to be only during meditation, something is happening. And so I'm going to remind you that if you haven't silenced your cell phone, do it now, not when we get to meditation. We have been having a lot of excitement here at the fellowship, and you might have noticed that the grounds are looking a little bit different. And I want to acknowledge that lots of people have been out to help us with our yard work. And if you were here Wednesday morning or Saturday morning, can you stand up? I know who you are, so if you don't stand up, then I'm going to call your name. Yeah. So we had about 15 folks on Wednesday morning and nearly 30 yesterday morning on Saturday. And the reason for the cleanup is just that we need to be fire safe. And so I know that everyone wants to know more information. Well, some of you do. And if you are one of those people, I have opportunities for you that are not listed in the Acer Skyline this week. And that is on August 6th, if you want to be part of the team that picks the rock that sort of helps keep us safe. That meeting is going to be here at 2 o'clock on August 6th, and that meeting will be followed at 3:30 by our monthly building and grounds meeting. And so if you want to know what's happening with the building and the grounds, this is the best place to get that information. We have a typo in the Skyline and Ace. Tuesday's girls' night out is from 5 to 7, not from whatever other time. It's definitely 5 to 7. The board is hosting its last listening session for the summer, and that's going to be on July 29th. And then I just want to remind you that the endowment committee has money to give away. And if you'd like some, and you've got a project on your mind and heart that will promote the values of Unitarian Universalism in your life or in the lives of our community here at the fellowship or in our greater Central Oregon community, mini grants can be requested now through August 15th, and the amounts will be somewhere between $500 and $1,500. So if you've got that project and all you need is the resources, this is the perfect time to ask. That's all I've got for today. All right, see you later.
We'll now take the morning's offering, an opportunity to recommit to this fellowship and support its work within and beyond our congregation.
It's not that kind of music, he said with a smile. It's more about the message and less about the style. Then he played a chord and each of us would try to learn the part. And he brought us all together singing music from the heart. It was a lesson in harmony, and we'd make that joyful sound. It was a song about spirit reaching for the higher ground. Sometimes he'd play the banjo, songs from other lands. Times it was a 12-string or the sound of clapping hands. But there always was this moment, kind of hard to understand, when the music became bigger than the man. It was a song about justice saying, won't you take a stand? It was a song about a song to sing all over this land. No, it's not that kind of music, I can still hear him say. though the 12 strings on the wall now waiting for a brighter day. I remember when it only took one voice and one guitar to bring the world together, to bring the world together, to bring the world together, singing music from the heart.
My name is Reverend Scott Rudolph, and I'm glad to be here and wish you a good morning as well. My pronouns are he, him, and I was late coming up because I was transfixed and just listening to the music and then realized I'm supposed to be in the pulpit. This is a loving congregation in relationship with one another, and as such, we like to share our gratitudes and our joys and our sorrows with one another. Sometimes we do that by sharing it with the whole fellowship and writing it on these pieces of paper that are at the kiosk, which you can do on a Sunday. And sometimes we just hold our joys and our gratitudes and our sorrows in our heart in this space, and we know that those are held in that way as well. If there's a joy or a sorrow or a gratitude that you'd like to light a candle for, please feel free to do that as I'm reading our written joys, sorrows, and gratitudes. Well, Grace Kennedy echoes Leora's gratitude and the joyful celebration and acknowledgement for all the hardworking folks who showed up to shovel, rake, and hoe in gloved hands to do an incredible start to our fire mitigation on the grounds of our beloved UUFCO property and home. Thank you. Indeed. Thank you to everyone who stood up earlier, everyone who is not here, maybe on Zoom, who helped out, and everyone who's thinking to themselves, maybe I'll help out next time. Because I noticed in Grace's gratitude there, it said, the incredible start to our fire mitigation. We are trying to make this place as fire safe as possible, so that's not the end of it. Carol Storm is grateful for Rick Russell and all the folks who are collecting water bottles for the homeless. We are doing that as well, our homeless outreach team here at the congregation. And there is a box in the front. It is hot out there, and those who do not have shelter need some water to drink, and so we're collecting that as well. A joy from Annis and Jim Henson. An Oklahoma family member received his DACA renewal, which also means he has his work visa for 2 more years. His U.S. citizen brother and all of us are relieved. May the current administration's cruel practices end in regard to other fearful, undocumented workers here and across our country. Susie Linford shares that on July 13th, we, being her and Dick, celebrated 60 years of marriage with our 3 daughters and their families here. And a heart. Where are Dick and Susie? Where are Dick and Susie? Where are Dick and Susie? They're there. They're there. Happy anniversary. 60 years, my goodness. And Don Hartzell's son, Neil, came up to me this morning, and Neil's with us from out of town, and said that Don had written a message for us for this morning. It is with high expectations, but also sadness, that I share the news that I will be leaving Bend and the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship later this week. I will join members of my family, also active Unitarians in Fullerton, California, near Los Angeles. Delight and I joined UUFCO 25 years ago. It was a small group, had no minister, owned no meeting place, had few resources, yet the fellowship took us in and put us to work. Our fellowship has come a long way in the last 25 years. For me personally, it has been a deeply personal and loving experience. Thank you all Dawn, we knew that you were leaving, and we thought it was later in this month, and we are surprised to find it is later in this week, and we love you dearly, Dawn. My brothers visited last week from out of town, one from Kentucky and one from Minneapolis. And it was my brother from Kentucky's first time in Bend. And he was surprised by something. We were going around a roundabout, and I stopped the car, and someone walked across, and he said, well, you just stop for pedestrians? And I said, yeah, we do that here. and he's from Lexington, Kentucky. He's a little bigger. Still friendly, still folksy. And then as they were crossing, they gave a friendly wave, and I gave a friendly wave back, and he said, well, isn't that neat? And I said, oh, yeah, we do that here. It's how we say thank you. And he was impressed by this simple act of kindness that people here in Bend have come accustomed to doing. I know you've probably experienced this too. There's a lot in that little gesture, that moment of acknowledgement, of thank you, of I slowed down, you slowed down. Sometimes that little piece of eye contact is a beautiful moment in an otherwise busy day. It is what it is to relate to one another, sometimes in grand gestures and sometimes small moments. And our days are made of those moments. And what a gift an act of kindness and love can be. Let us take a deep breath, find ourselves in this room in our body, together, here, and now. Let us share some spoken words of prayer and meditation, followed by a time of shared silence together. Spirit of life and spirit of love, that holy and sacred and animating ember that burns within us. May we find our love abundant, so abundant that we spread it with reckless abandon. Let us feel the warmth of our connections here today. In the face of human cruelty, which is inside of each one of us as well, if it is human, as Maya Angelou reminds us. Let us feel the warmth of connection today in community rather than turning to isolation or disconnection. Let us recommit here and now and dedicate ourselves to this practice of being human, of being ferociously kind, unashamedly vulnerable, and savagely soft. Let us love tenderly the parts of ourselves that are difficult, and let us remember that we are all made of water and stardust, and that all of us are hurt and healing, and so is the world. And then we can only do what is in our hands to do and within our reach. But let us remember and be committed to doing that. Let us embrace all our embodied and perceived contradictions and fold them into this ever-expanding now, this holy moment, this precious world. Let us love wide open, abundantly, in each and every life we encounter, especially when it's hard. let us love in this way, and feel and witness and express the ways that it makes our hearts grow wider in the world.
Hi, everybody. There are a lot of you out there. Thank you so much, Marion, for this invitation and for the opportunity to be here with all of you this morning. It's an enormous pleasure. I see some familiar faces, some friends of many years here. What a delight. When Marion asked me some months ago for a title and topic, I was in the midst of reworking a poem, and so I sort of randomly recruited it as the source of the theme for today's conversation. An earlier rendering of this poem opened the Oregon's 83rd legislative session last January, but if any of you are writers or poets or choreographers or lyricists, you know that the work is never really done. So you go back and back and back, at the risk of ruining the freshness of the beginning version or maybe improving it. And so when this day arrived, I had to check and see what it was I had said I'd say. And the last 3 days, literally, I've spent trying to figure that out. So the poem I was working on includes a reference to Landholder. And I'm intrigued as to how well this will fit, I hope, with the tone of what I've been lucky to experience with all of you so far this morning. Landholder is an indigenous word for tree. Landholder. What a magical word. A word that speaks in the tongue of the thing itself, that celebrates the interconnectedness and sacredness of everything. Can we shape our daily bread of words to reflect that? Can we string words together as beautifully as these by author and lepidopterist Robert Michael Pyle, who says, "Butterfly wings are the very canvases of our evolution." Can we dare venture out of our word silos? My poem references a place where words mean the same thing to everyone. When that phrase came to me, and this is sort of what happens as you write, you've heard about novelists saying, the story took me over, I just followed its lead. It's true in a way. It's true. And so when this phrase came to me, I felt the world would surely be at peace in such a place because we'd all understand one another, where words mean the same thing to everyone. So I invite you today to join me in the contemplation of such a word place. Together, let's explore the origin, sound, color, meaning, and power of words, while reckoning what the loss of words might portend about our capacity for relationship to place and one another. The high desert has long been my muse. I've lived here a long time. And my father used to say, if you paddle in milk long enough, it turns to cream, which is sort of how I feel about being Poet Laureate. Here I am, an overnight success after 7 decades of trying. I often say that I believe we are led to the landscape that teaches us what we need to learn, and often that changes over lifetimes, different landscapes. This seems to be the one that has raised its hand for me, and I am a grateful and chastened student of the sagebrush ocean, let me say. So no surprise, the desert serves as the center pole in the poem in question. The poem concludes with a koan, which by way of refresher is a kind of paradoxical riddle. It takes us everywhere and nowhere at once. A silly example would be, is it faster to Chicago or by bus? Or the well-known Buddhist koan, the sound of one hand clapping. The pun in my title is intended. Remember, this was to the opening the legislative session, and I've now adapted it to all of us. The poem is titled, A Koan to Action. Did you know the Owyhee Canyonlands are 16 million years deep? That millennia ago, people lived on the verdant shores of the high desert's inland sea? If I do the math, in relative terms, each of our lives will have lasted an hour? That makes this moment paramount. If whistles and bells are the distraction, here's a suggestion in the form of a question. When's the last time you were lost on purpose somewhere in the middle of nowhere where no sign of humankind was visible, silence tangible, where the word for tree might still be landholder, or for salmon, humans with eternal life, where the madcap symphony of trills, burbles, bugles, and howls quelled the tyranny of your thoughts. The desert's grandeur reminds us of our small stature. Here, we're dwarfed by mountains that walk across desiccated lake beds, awed by ghost-like alkaline twisters that trade colors and places with the wind, startled to attention by winged eruptions from among creekside willows. It's here, we'll discover words that mean the same thing to everyone. Each of us is both captain and crew of this kinship, called on to tend in equal measure to bounty and lack as we journey from hope to despair and back, relearning the mother tongue of the sagebrush sea, withstanding the winds that would rend what binds you to you to you to me. How to do that? Here's the koan. Go to the desert, find 4 roads that run side by side, and choose the middle one. The winds that would rend what binds us. We could spend this entire morning talking about those gale force winds battering our world, nation, land, waters, lives. The trick, I think, is not to dwell on grief, but not deny it either. Hold both at once. Find the middle of four roads while doing what we can to improve things. Grief is in direct proportion to our love of what is being threatened or has been lost. In that sense, grief is a call to action. What do words have to do with all of this? Well, since you didn't ask, I believe maintaining the diversity of language guards the health of what the word names, sustains what the word is the noun of, the action of, the description of, and thereby keeps all things cherished in our hearts, alive in our minds, as well as thriving in fact, in real time. I believe it's incumbent on us all to sustain, reinvigorate, and refresh language that has, quote, the quivering intensity of an arrow thudding into a tree, as author J.A. Baker said. When we frequent places where nature is the biggest deal, it's there we get to the origins and orisons of language. It's why I am so indebted to our high desert. It has taught me how to speak and to write and to teach and to advocate. As I head into the second year of my 2-year term as Poet Laureate, it strikes me that my job on the road is not only to gather with those who love and or write poetry in all its forms, but also to grow the chorus of poetry across the state. Grow more readers and writers of poetry to help us map our way to one another, to all things. How? Get poetry in front of more people. Poems that elevate and celebrate the language we have in common, the common language, the commoners' languages. Get poems displayed where they are least expected. A poster at the DMV, a table stand in a rural cafe. I'm encouraging cities, counties, parks and recreation associations, school districts to incorporate a poem in new construction projects, on a wall, an entranceway, along park paths. I'm advocating for poets from the region to be included in calls for submissions to Oregon's 1% for art projects, on and on. Let's get poetry everywhere. A decade ago, English educators, environmentalists, and authors vehemently protested the many words associated with nature that were eliminated from a revised edition of the Oxford Junior Dictionary. Almond, blackberry, and crocus made way for analog, block graph, and celebrity. Catkin, cauliflower, chestnut, and clover were bumped for cut and paste, broadband, and analog. Among the protesters was British author Robert Macfarlane. We do not care, he said, for what we do not know. And on the whole, we do not know what we cannot name. Do we want an alphabet for children that begins A is for acorn, B is for buttercup, C is for conquer? Or one that begins A is for attachment, B is for block graph, C is for chat room? Or, as Robert Pyle famously said, what is the extinction of a condor to a child who has never seen a wren? I would add, what about the child who never said the word wren? The protest letter to the Oxford University Press pointed out the, quote, shocking, proven connection between the decline in natural play and the decline in children's well-being. Obesity, antisocial behavior, friendlessness, and fear are the known consequences, unquote. And I would add that if we, young and old, don't get out into the landscape, we won't have reason to strive to find words for what we experience, see, hear, smell. And hold that thought, I'll return to it at the end of my comments. Ultimately, the place itself will cease to matter. Over time, the words for it will then disappear. Paid political announcement. If you're needing a desert writing fix, check out the High Desert Museum's website for information about the Lost in Place Nature Writing Intensive in September. I'll be leading it along with Dennis Jenkins, archaeologist, and John Nelson, naturalist, a Thursday evening to a Sunday morning. Again, back to McFarlane. Once a landscape goes undescribed and therefore unregarded, it becomes more vulnerable to unwise use or improper action. Let's return for a moment to a world inhabited by people for whom black is tuhu, toha is white, essa is gray, ont is brown, atsa is red, green and blue are both puhe. Sun is taba, moon muha, water ba'a. Bald eagle is gwegne na'a. Field mouse is pungatse. That's the Paiute world. Or imagine we're riding across the rangelands of southeastern Oregon and cross paths with a young cowboy, Henry Hyde, and other buckaroos from the Spanish vaquero, moving cattle out of the high forest, snapping their lariats, lariata, against their legs, clicking and hooting, encouraging the herd along with a form of cowboy scat, singing hut, hut, hiya, hiya, sh, 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 hip, hip, hup. Nonsense syllables, wordless vocables used over decades by cowboys from Mexico to Canada to urge cattle down the trail. Henry might tell fellow riders about the rock jacks he built, the cavy of horses he gathered that morning, boast about his success roping corrientes at the local jackpot team roping, missing his dally when trying to rope and doctor a leppy bull calf in the open meadow, while the healthy ones hightailed it, tails crooked, in the air. He might admire the conches on his fellow rider's bit, how glad he was for his protective tapaderos and chaps riding through the dense mountain mahogany. He might admire a cowboy's toughness, harder than a picnic egg, that guy. Or advise his friend riding a snuffy, counterfeit colt to keep a deep seat and a loose rein. He might even opine about the shiny 10th grade girl he had his eye on. Older cowboys on the drive might bring his attention back to the task at hand with, make a hand, cowboy up. Wranglers use what is called a domesticated prather horse, also called a Judas horse, to lead wild horses into the corral. The wild ones are referred to as broomtails, fuzztails, or mustangs. To me, losing the language of the Native American, the fisherman, the cowboy, or the logger, whistlepunk, strawline, snooze, peavy, hashers, donkey puncher, bucker and bullcook, bandsaw, blue stain, boxed heart, flitch, scant, shook, wane. These words were common on the streets of Bend. For me, losing those languages is as tragic as losing the soft conversational chuck-chuck of the sage grouse or plaintive howl of the wolf. In a way few urbanites can understand, due to their limited dictionaries of natural experience, rural and frontier communities directly depend on the harvest of natural resources. It's controversial, but yes. And it's a harvest city dwellers benefit from. But if we can just learn to speak each other's languages, I am persuaded a collaborative, mutually beneficial way forward can happen. Just by saying these words out loud here this morning resuscitates them, reintroduces them to our lexicon, honors the work, the people, the activity, and the good and the bad decisions on all sides. That's that grief and action thing. When we lose diversity of language, which after all is our primary currency as humans, it is a loss of experience, a diminishment of imagination. Wendell Berry said, people exploit what they have merely concluded to be of value, but they defend what they love. And to defend what we love, we need a particularizing language, for we love what we particularly know. In reaction to the Oxford Press episode, McFarlane decided to gather what he described as fine-grained terms for land and weather, used by farmers, fishermen, miners, scientists, climbers, poets, those whose ways of describing place and practice in the British Isles were getting lost. His aim, I love this, rewild the language. How brilliant is that? Listen to some of the gems of words he stumbled across in places like Devon and Shetland and I don't know. Amil, the thin film of ice that lacquers leaves, twigs, and grass when a freeze follows partial thaw, and when in light the whole landscape glitters. That's what that is. That's Amil. Pier, a light breath of wind. Smooze, dialect for a gap in the base of a hedge made by the regular passage of a small animal. Zugs, little bog islands about the size of a bucket. Icicle, aquabob, clinkerbell, dagler. The word for thaw, ungive. In another rewilding effort, John Lloyd, another Brit, of course, because those guys have an idea of humor that I would love to have, gathered British place names used, co-opted basically, used as nouns for, as Lloyd says, the hundreds of common experiences, feelings, situation, and even objects which we all know and recognize, but for which no words exist. Example, hold on. Kimmerage, the light breeze that blows through your armpit hair when you are sunbathing. Now, I just have to stop for a moment and say, in writing, in poetry, in life, you know it's been a success when you'll never see or think of that experience in the same way again as a result of the writing. I dare you, stretch out in the sun. Guess what you're going to think of? Kimmerage. Here's another, glassel, a seaside pebble which was shiny and interesting when wet, and which is now a lump of rock, but which children nevertheless insist on filling their suitcases with after a holiday. McFarlane reports that he once told his young son there was no word for the smooth, shining hump of water that rises above a submerged rock in a stream. His son thought for a minute, then suggested, current bum. Speaking of rewilding, and closer to home, the removal of 4 dams on the Klamath River was completed on October 3rd, 2024. That same month, talk about waiting to exhale, adult fall Chinook salmon made it all the way to Oregon stretch of the Klamath Basin for the first time in more than a century, swimming more than 200 miles from the Pacific Ocean. Could the Klamath tribe's steadfast devotion to keeping alive words like ambo for water, clamatl for swiftness, rapid water, or kokte for river, have played a role in realizing this outcome? Or the loyalty to their languages by the Yurok, Hupa, and Karuk tribes downriver? At the very least, these words are now resurrected and renewed by this now free-flowing river and can return with the salmon to spawn in a restored homeland. Here's a sort of writing prompt for you per today's topic. Hold on, I have a prop. I have to get my prop. It's going to give it away. Very clever. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to go by mule down into the canyons of the Baja's San Francisco Mountains for a week-long camping trip visiting ancient petroglyphs inscribed on canyon walls, and nobody knows who did it, actually, because they were done with, which is it? Whichever the one you cannot read with carbon dating, either mineral or vegetable, whichever it is. So nobody knows who did them, or they know they're old, but they don't know it. Anyway, family clans there eke out an existence in this rugged, dry climb, raising goats, cattle, corn, supplies. Supplies are transported on the backs of burros. Livestock are herded on foot or muleback. The only nod to more modern times are walkie-talkies. Reception is poor, so cell phones are of little use. Each clan living in these sun-gold-foiled, sheer-sided ravines has a single bell tone that identifies both the owner and, as determined by the size and shape of the bell, the livestock. All the livestock have these bells around their necks. It's a sound brand, if you will, allowing farmers to locate by tone the burros and mules in the morning, or their neighbors' missing goats. In my tent at night, I was lullabied by a bell choir sounding softly in the distance, clanging, dinging, chiming high, low, as the animals clinked around, foraging for sustenance in the moonlit canyon. Help me here. What is a word for that sonorous lullaby that incorporates the sound and what made it and where the sound lived? And then when they see something really good to eat in the middle of the night, you'd hear. There's a quiz coming up later. Speaking of bells, I want to share a poem by a poet I deeply, deeply admire, former U.S. poet Ted Kooser. Let me tell you why I love this poem. First of all, he's a poet who worked for an insurance company for his professional life, cubicles everywhere, would bring in a poem, pass it around. If everybody in their cubicle didn't get it, he'd go home and rework it. And the result is that the words just feel as though they've just been just like a shrug, just like dropping your shoulders. They're just so naturally in that order on the page. They feel they've always stood that way, always stood side by side. This poem, this particular poem, illustrates, for me, being alive to the natural world and translating it to inform the poet's humanity, for the poet and for the reader. Now, this is one of a series of poems that Ted Kooser has been doing, because he writes himself a birthday poem every one of his birthdays, something you might consider. So that's basically writing prompt number 2. What was the sound word? And write a birthday poem for yourself. Now, you can tell he knows for the out of doors. He also seems to know for dairy farming. He references a stanchion. I can't tell you how often I come across people who don't know the word stanchion. I mean, I realize probably dairy farms have different systems now. But listen to what he does with that, and listen to how a sun setting in the woods is translated into something absolutely extraordinary. This is someone who has his fingers plugged into the socket of the beauty of our natural world. A birthday poem. Just past dawn, the sun stands with its heavy red head in a black stanchion of trees, waiting for someone to come with his bucket for the foamy white light, and then a long day in the pasture. I too spend my days grazing, feasting on every green moment till darkness calls, and with the others, I walk away into the night, swinging the little tin bell of my name. He wrote this in his late 70s. I'm a little startled to say that because that's where I am. And you see that he's reckoning with the foamy white light that exists for him now till darkness calls. And with others, I walk away into the night. And what evidence do we have of our life? The little tin bell of our names. It is a beautiful and magnificent poem. So, Ted Kusser rocks. The idea of writing yourself a birthday poem, I think, is worthy of rocking. So I'm going to close now. But I first just want to thank you again for your attention and coming and listening in on this kind of blind man and the elephant effort to figure out what it was I told Maureen I'd do. But speaking of words and benedictions, here's a poem from my book, Via Lactea, about walking the Camino in Spain. It's titled, Make Believe. Make believe you're an envelope with a note inside written in the form of a prayer. The all of you, your M-laugh, your run-on mistakes, is the inscription written by the poet in an elegant metaphysical hand, then folded, placed inside the envelope that is you, and gently mailed into the world when you are born. Your prayer is written within the within of you. The space between each you word is where heaven abides. Petitioning a distant deity, a waste of time? When prayer is to be a reporting, a telling. So every day, if you can, turn more and more inside out so the you prayer is exposed to more and more light. Thank you.
The previous song, not that kind of music, and this song, Sing People Sing, celebrate Pete Seeger. Many of you may have even seen him. He was a get together, get people to sing memorable melodies, and get everybody to breathe together. Conspiracy. Yeah. So we'd like to invite you to sing the chorus on this song, and it goes, Oh, hear the banjo ring, hear the people sing. Hope changes everything. Sing, people, sing. So we'll all do that in conspiracy together. 1, 2, 3. When I was 4, I had a toy made of plastic and of joy, a magic musical machine from a drum, a stick, and strings. I couldn't know as I would play, I'd live to meet the man one day, playing songs that shaped my life, and he taught the world to sing. This is your part.
Let's stand up for this.
Oh, hear the banjo ring, hear the people sing. Hope changes everything. Hope changes everything. Sing, people, sing. In the summer of my 18th year, in San Francisco he'd appear. I jumped into a trolley car alone and wondering. The grove was full when I got there. People came from everywhere. I climbed a redwood by the stage to watch the reveling. Everybody, oh, hear the banjo ring, hear the people sing. Hope changes everything. Hope changes everything. Sing, people, sing. Years went by, I got a call, a festival in early fall, along the Hudson River shore, a harvest gathering. They're asking me to volunteer to keep the river clean and clear, celebrate the river's life and all the gifts she brings. Oh, hear the banjo ring, hear the people sing, hear the people sing. Hope changes everything. Hope changes everything. Sing, people sing, sing, people sing. You stood up to McCarthy's rage, rallied for a living wage, rode with Woody, marched with Dr. King. You patiently brought us along, taught us each and every song. With Toshi by your side, you could do most anything. You showed us how the world could be, living with integrity. Together we create a force beyond imagining. As I observed your dimming light, I felt a spark in me ignite. I would trade it all today to hear your banjo ring. Oh, hear the banjo. Oh, hear the banjo ring. Hear the people sing. Hope changes everything. Sing, people sing. Sounds so good, let's sing it again. Oh, hear the banjo ring, hear the people sing. Hope changes everything. Sing, people sing. Sing, people sing.
Now, as Reverend Scott extinguishes our chalice, please join in saying our covenant, the promise we make to each other in community. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Go to the desert. Find 4 roads that run side by side, and choose the middle one. I wonder what it is we might find there. Perhaps it's a place to find the audacity to write that birthday poem, where we're called to tend to bounty and lack, where we can embrace our kimmerage, where grief is a call to action, and where our hearts ungive. If what we particularly know is what we love, may we come to particularly know so much of life and to be particularly known. And let us be swift to do so, for each life is only an hour. Go in peace.